Welcome! So today, we're going to break down the official didactic guide for the Year 5 English classroom. We're going to turn it into a practical 5-minute toolkit, pulling out all the most actionable insights you can use. Okay, let's just dive right in with the big question, right? The one that every teacher of 10 and 11-year-olds asks. What really is the secret to a thriving Year 5 English classroom? Well, OMAP for today is the official guide itself. It's this super comprehensive document designed to help teachers like you roll out the Year 5 syllabus. We're going to use it to get to the heart of the core philosophy and, more importantly, the strategies you can use in your classroom tomorrow. Okay, first things first. To teach them, we've got to understand them. And Year 5, well, it's a huge year of transition. So who exactly are these pivotal learners? So your students are in what the famous psychologist Piaget called the concrete operational stage. What that really means is they're getting pretty good at thinking logically about the real world, but abstract ideas, yeah, those are still kind of foggy. The main takeaway here, they need tangible examples, things they can see and touch to really get new concepts. And what's so interesting here is that this paints a picture of a kid who's right in the middle of a massive transition. They're going through huge changes. They're becoming less self-centered, but they still see the world through their own lens. They're like sponges for information. And importantly, they need us to show them how to think critically and how to work with others. Okay, so let's shift gears a little and look at the theories behind all this. It'll really help us understand what's going on inside the Year 5 mind. So like we just said, Piaget tells us to make learning tangible. You've got to connect everything back to their direct, concrete experiences. If they can't touch it, see it, or relate it to something they already know, well, it's going to be a tough sell. Then you've got Vygotsky. He really zeroes in on your role as a guide. He said learning is a social thing. You, the more knowledgeable other, help your students step into their zone of proximal development. That sweet spot where they're just ready to learn something new, but they need your help to get there. And Maslow, gosh, this reminds us of such a fundamental truth. A kid just can't learn if they don't feel safe, if they don't feel like they belong. Meeting these basic needs, it's the absolute foundation for any real learning to happen. And this does hits the nail on the head for this age. Erickson called this stage industry versus inferiority. Your students are constantly, and I mean constantly, comparing themselves to their friends. So our job is to create chances for them to succeed, to build up that sense of competence, and to help every single student find something they can shine at. Now this table right here, this is your secret weapon for differentiation. It breaks down the 4 main ways your students learn: visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and tactile. The whole idea is to mix it up. Use charts for your visual kids, discussions for your auditory ones, and get those kinesthetic and tactile learners moving and doing things. That's how you reach everybody. Okay, so we've got the theory down. Now let's talk about actually building the ideal learning environment. And we're going to start with one of the most powerful tools you have in your toolbox: feedback. I love this quote from John Hattie. It just frames it perfectly. Feedback isn't criticism. It's just information about how we are doing in our efforts to reach a goal. Think of it like a roadmap, not a report card. So, how do we give that feedback in a way that actually builds kids up instead of tearing them down? Well, the guide recommends a really simple but super effective technique: the feedback sandwich. And yeah, it's pretty much as simple as it sounds. Number 1, you start with specific praise. Tell them something they did well. Number 2, you give them clear, targeted advice on what they can improve. And number 3, you end with another positive, encouraging comment. It's a game changer for keeping students motivated. Now, beyond feedback, the guide points to 3 other keys. First, planning. A solid lesson plan is your best defense against chaos. Second, mix up the seating. Seriously, just changing the layout can totally change the energy in the room. And finally, my favorite, with itness. It's that classic teacher superpower, right? Having eyes in the back of your head. All right, let's get into the nuts and bolts. We're talking about teaching the 4 fundamental language skills. This is the how of English class. Now, a really helpful way to think about these skills is to split them into 2 groups. You've got your receptive skills, that's the language coming in, so listening and reading. And then you have your productive skills, that's the language going out, so speaking and writing, input and output. Simple as that. Okay, this table is pure gold. It boils down the biggest challenge and the best solution for each skill. For listening, kids think they have to understand every single word. So the fix? Prep them for the task and let them listen more than once. For speaking, it's all about fear of making mistakes. So we have to create a safe space, using pairs and groups. For reading, they get stuck on just decoding the words. The answer? Repeated readings to build that fluency. And for writing, it's often the mechanics. So we use group writing to practice. See? Problem? Solution. So after all this work, understanding our students, managing the classroom, teaching these skills, what's the point? What's the ultimate goal we're all striving for? Well, according to the syllabus, the end game is to build something called global competence. It's not just about speaking English. It's about being able to interpret, interact with, and create messages effectively in a world that's more connected than ever. It's about language plus citizenship plus being open to the world. So, as we wrap up, the real value here is putting this stuff into action. So the question I want to leave you with is this. What's one strategy from this guide that you'll try in your classroom tomorrow? Because honestly, even one small change can make a massive difference in your students' journey.